the truth.
Hi everyone, Optical here. So today this is going to be my final review, closing thoughts of Call of Duty Vanguard, released on the 5th of November 2021 by Sledgehammer Games, Treyarch and Raven Software, with aid from other studios, that is being published yet again by Activision in its bi-yearly release of the franchise. Call of Duty Vanguard has a pretty troubling standpoint within the Call of Duty community, that being because of its bland zombies experience, its standard multiplayer, and the really weirdly told campaign, which I'm going to get into now. In Call of Duty Vanguard, we have our four main characters: Lucas Riggs, Polina Petrova, Wade Jackson, and Arthur Kingsley. And the voice actors that perform these do a very good job at making these characters feel like a grounded approach to the franchise. However, the way that this campaign is told just isn't good. It's not told in a chronological order, which essentially means that it gets very confusing to follow during the storyline's playthrough. Now, what I will say about the campaign, though, is that it's greatly carried by its incredible soundtrack by Bear McCreary, and for me, I liked what this tried to do. It tried to represent the emotions being conveyed by the story, but basically pushing it forward a bit more, and just giving each character its own unique feel when it comes to the music. Each character does play a crucial role in this story, because at the end of the day, their stories are all tied up near the end of the campaign. I'm not going to spoil it, but you can look it up on YouTube. I'm not really a spoiler guy, so I'm just like that. Now, what I will say about the campaign is that it's a pretty good campaign in terms of the design and the overall feel to each different one. It takes place on all different fronts of war, so you basically go to each character's homeland and you see how that's been affected by the war and their plan of basically getting their revenge and etc. Now, the campaign's been discussed. Let's talk about why the multiplayer is a bland experience. At first I didn't want to believe it, but this map is, like all the maps and the multiplayer itself, is basically just reskinned Modern Warfare 2019 experiences, but taking a World War II approach. And I don't like this because essentially it makes the game lose its identity in the Call of Duty franchise. It feels like Vanguard is having an identity crisis on terms of where it fits in this whole universe setup. Now, in the multiplayer, I want to talk about the weapon system. It's really weirdly done in terms of that there's a lot of customization for the weapons, and then you can basically make each weapon feel different than what it was originally designed as. And for me, I don't really like this because you always want weapons to feel fluent. So someone could be running the same gun as you, and yet they could put all these different attachments on that might be stronger or just overall be a bit more faster. And that puts you at a disadvantage because if you're someone who doesn't grind the game much, you're being punished for essentially not doing that. Whereas this is what I liked about the classic Call of Duties, is that the progression was focused more heavily on the operators and characters themselves. So if Call of Duty could find a way to do that in their next product, like being Modern Warfare 2 or COD 2024, I'd like to see it where the overall progression is focused on both the operator and the weapons. So let's say your operator, or your own self, the more you rank up, the more your weapons are going to rank up altogether. So let's say I hit level 5. that weapon, all those weapons I have in the gunsmith will hit level 5 as well. So your weapons level up with you, and so does the operator customization, therefore creating a more fluid experience and feeling like you have to dedicate less time to each different weapon. So how do the weapons feel in Call of Duty Vanguard? Well, it's a substantial improvement to how some of the Modern Warfare 19 weapons felt, but a step down from what Cold War felt. Cold War basically nailed the weapon customization in terms of that it was a lot more streamlined, and Vanguard didn't really do that. It wasn't streamlined because you had all these different attachments you could put on, all these different perks that basically gave your weapon unique abilities. And each weapon basically plays a crucial part in the multiplayer experience, because if you're playing a large scale map, you're going to want a sniper. If you're playing a more medium scale map, you're going to want a assault rifle. Or if you're playing a compact map like Shipment or Das Haus, you're going to want a shotgun or an RPG. That's just how it plays, because ultimately, or an SMG. And that's how it plays, and that's how it has been played in the past few Call of Duty titles since Modern Warfare 2019. Now, let's talk about the zombies experience. I'm going to be honest and say that as a fan who's been playing multiplayer and zombies in Call of Duty in general for 10 years, this is a really, really lackluster experience. But I'm going to go partly easy on Treyarch because of the development time they were given, and also their whole work situation going on right now with the whole controversy surrounding Activision Blizzard, and also the Microsoft acquisition currently being closed up. Now, being honest, I feel really let down as a zombies player. This mode was really, really, really undersold. And the reason why I say undersold is because it wasn't... Well, it was undersold and oversold. Undersold being that it wasn't completely honest about the gameplay experience of Vanguard Zombies, and oversold because Treyarch was working on the title. And when you hear Treyarch working on a Zombies title, you're going to assume it's going to be a great round-based Zombies experience. And Vanguard didn't deliver that for 6 months. Now, I want to talk about each map. I like the art direction of Duran Fung, and I don't mind the direction of Terra Maledicta, but I love the direction of Shinonuma. But I really, really, really hate what they did to Archon in terms of the map design. So let's talk about Duran Fung. It takes a more sinister approach. Zombies in this game feels a lot more sinister in terms of ambience wise. It pretty much feels like Zombies wants to try and scare the player a bit more. And I'm glad they're kind of doing that, because ultimately that's what I liked about Cold War, and that's what I liked about Past Zombies Iterations, is that it had a very dark approach. But Vanguard dials up to 11 because you've got all these different rituals, seances, and skeletons, and all these dead soldier corpses on the sidelines around the map design. And I like that because it basically makes zombies feel a lot more threatening. Now, let's talk about threatening. We need to talk about the demons in this game. Yes, in this one, Treyarch decides to incorporate demons into the Dark Aether narrative. Now, our main demons are Cortifex the Deathless, who is also the main villain of the story, Syraxis the Shadow, Invicta the Destroyer, and then you've got Nauticus the Conqueror, Vakana the Last, and then I think you've got one other. That was it, and Invicta the Destroyer. And then you have Ulbafura Wolfram von List being basically the sidekick to Cortifex in terms of villain-wise, and then we're being guided by Gabriel Kraft, a demonologist who guides us throughout these different maps, telling us how each mode is going to play out. Well, not mode, but how each either objective or map is going to play out. Zombies in this game felt a lot more toned down, both mechanically and narratively. The reason being is that the way they handled the perk system, and also how they handled the narrative focus. So Cold War felt a lot more story rich, and sort of story rich, but also mechanically quite rich as well, because gameplay wise there was a lot of innovations they made to that mode that we hadn't seen in Zombies before that really carried that mode forward. In Vanguard Zombies, the perks are bland because it takes away a lot of what the progression left us in Cold War. So Cold War had the classic perks, but you had these things called Ethereum crystals that basically allowed you to build upon what Cold War had set up. and Cold War got it right in terms of the gameplay loop, where Vanguard got it wrong. Vanguard gets it wrong because it removes all the essential gameplay loops, so that being within the first 4 to 6 months, we did not have a round-based experience. We had a roguelike objective experience, where instead of it being like the tally counting the rounds, it was actually counting the objectives you had completed within the maps. That was being Terra Maledicta and Duran's Fung. Now, this is the thing. Treyarch really did oversell this and undersell it. So, undersell it because not only were they not being completely honest about how the gameplay is going to play out, they oversold it because they know that fans love their zombies experience, and they know that fans wanted to see more where Cold War left off. And we didn't get any of that. We got a very bare bones and dry experience that essentially, it left a lot of zombies content creators in the dark as well, because it removed those elements that content could be made out of. You know, typically, each match in zombies between Terra Maledicta and Durang Fung lasts 20 minutes because you do all the portals, you open up the map, you get all your perks, you're done. And the Easter eggs for Terra Maledicta was so bland because of the rewards you got, and that you was just listening to quotations and doing the objectives. But then we also had no wonder weapon for around 4 months, so obviously usually the ray gun's quite a staple part of zombies. We didn't have that. We had no pack-a-punch camo, and there was just a lot of more weirder ways, and obviously how more expensive the perks got, because your first purchase was free on all the perks, but then it got more and more expensive, and then they overcharged you on the pack-a-punch, because the pack-a-punch was 7,500 zombies points. Luckily, they put that back down in Shinonuma. Let's get onto Shinonuma, because Shinonuma in Vanguard is probably the best iteration design-wise. That's because it's expanded. We got the things we wanted to have, so we had the Pack-a-Punch machine, a more darker feel to the map, and also we finally got a proper Easter egg. But ultimately, it's the mechanics of Vanguard zombies that just rank this thing down. And to be honest, Vanguard Zombies feels like a very punishing experience to a zombies player, because it's forcing you to do all these different things again and again and again to improve your character, that you don't keep the upgrades you get in the game in terms of the perks, and that's not fun. And also that all the ways that they done the weapon upgrades out of game. So in Cold War you had more attachments for your weapon, or you could have a little bit of the weapon damage buffed in the zombies map. Didn't even get that. So it took away a lot of the essential gameplay loops. And the Archon, which was the final zombies map for Vanguard Zombies, left a very, very sour taste in a lot of zombies fans, because of not only how it ended, but the fact that it was just a reskin to Terra Maledicta, which has been dubbed one of the worst zombies maps of all time. The reason why I'm not mad they've done this is because of the limited development time they had, and that they were still working on Modern Warfare 2 as well. So I can kind of excuse that, because the boss fight did reward players in the end. It was a very fun experience. But ultimately, what was fun for a limited time ended up being boring in the final product. Altogether, Vanguard Zombies feels like it, and Vanguard in general, feels like it shouldn't have released. It feels like Cold War needed another year of content, while Activision was getting ready to deliver Modern Warfare 2, which I'm excited for, because it has an improved colour palette, it has an improved graphical engine, and it looks like it has improved mechanics that solve some of the problems that Modern Warfare 19 had. But regardless, I still respect what Vanguard tried to do by trying to build upon where Modern Warfare 19 fouled, but sadly actually made it worse. But I will say the soundtrack to this game was fantastic. Bear McCreary does knock it out the park. I like what he did with soundtrack. Each each character in the Vanguard campaign has a unique feel to them because of the music that is presenting their characteristics. But ultimately, what we're left with as a whole is just a overhyped, oversold Call of Duty product by Activision that is a broken mess in multiplayer, and it is just a mess in zombies. Essentially, the players are left to do the work of where the QA testers left off. So we're paying our money to test a game that hasn't felt tested on before launch. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to the QA testers, because I know the situation they're in right now. It's been all over the news. It's been reported that they're doing all these different demonstrations and work strikes, not like violent demonstrations, but just peaceful ones where they're protesting the workplace of Activision and Blizzard. But regardless, this should not have released knowing what this product would have been. I still think that our money just needs to be refunded, because overall it's a bad experience. And Battlefield has actually improved. Battlefield 2042 has improved its mechanics because they brought back all the classes system, and Vanguard hasn't really done that. It hasn't improved mechanically where the game fouls, but ultimately has left fans in the dark because it hasn't carried on where campaign left off. It did its own thing. We got all these weird collaborations. It did not become the realistic World War II shooter that Sledgehammer Games wanted it to be. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm Optical. You have a good day.